Hey guys, it's Ray, and today I want to talk about two features of my custom minivan build. First is this off-grid shower setup. It's complete with a water tank. It's got a quick connect hose and a privacy tent right here. And as you can see, it's got plenty of water pressure to take a shower. And then I'll show you how I made this low-profile custom separating toilet, and we'll talk about how much it cost to build. If you want a shower or bath setup in a small rig, the first thing you have to decide is where's it going to go? Do you have room for it? One benefit to a lot of minivans is the deep storage space you get by removing the third row seats. With all that empty space, I was hoping I could use it for something I made a while back. I built an off-grid recirculating shower-in-a-box. It has 2 water pumps, an accumulator tank, 4-stage water filtration, a heat exchanger, and a thermostat for hot and cold water. And the best thing, it all fits inside a large plastic toolbox, so no water leaks. I built the whole unit as one piece with handles, so I could lift it out of the toolbox to change the filters or tighten the connections. I love this thing, but unfortunately it was too big to fit in the minivan, so I had to simplify. Here's a shot showing the wood frame and rear cabinets I created in the van. Ultimately, I used the area on the right to hold my portable power station, so I was left with the space to the left for the shower setup. You can see the blue water tank and hose here. This is a shot looking straight down into the cabinet. This is where I keep the tent pole for the shower curtain. I'll show you that later. And if you look right here, it's hard to see, but this is the bottom of the water pump mounted here in the very back. I'm using a high-end Seaflow water pump, 5.5 gallons per minute. It's expensive, but that's why the water pressure is so good. During the build, I tried mounting the pump in a few other places, as one does. And in case you're wondering, yes, you are supposed to mount these pumps upside down. For the water tank, I test fitted a bunch of different size water containers. I really wanted to use these tall baby blue narrow containers. They're 7 gallons each, which would be great. But when I closed the cabinet top, there wasn't room for any other storage. This short tank I have now leaves room to store the shower curtains and the water hose. And speaking of the hose, I knew I wanted an easy way to connect the hose to the tank without having to get inside the cabinet every time. When I'm in camp mode, my 12-volt freezer sits on top of the cabinet, so getting stuff in and out is a pain. So I bought this quick connect kit that comes with the hose, the sprayer, and a mountable dock. Most people probably mount the dock flush on the outside of their RVs. I wanted the connection inside, so I built a small wooden box to hold it, and that allowed me to run a hose from the dock to the tank and leave it connected. Before I mounted everything permanently, I tested the pump and the whole kit outside the van first to check for leaks. The little box for the dock also gave me a place to mount this waterproof power switch. I ran the wiring from the pump to the switch, and from the switch to my 12-volt fuse panel about 6 feet away, located just inside the driver's side sliding door. A tip if you're doing your own wiring, make sure you have easy access to your connections and your fuse panel, because something will come loose or stop working and you'll need to get to it. Now back to the quick connect. This goes into here. You just have to line up these little threads, lock it into place like that. You take the hose, turn on the power supply. I got a little bit of water there. Still building up pressure. This is how the private shower area looks once I have it set up. I have 2 shower curtains hanging on a 16-foot tent pole that I bend in half and thread into these tiny eye bolts on my roof rack. I have 2 on either side. Then I use one of my awning support poles to hold up the edge farthest from the van. That pole sits inside a plastic weight on the ground to keep it from moving, and I use spring clamps to hold the shower curtain in place. Here's a look at the water pressure. It's pretty good and definitely strong enough for a shower. If you find this video interesting, please like it and subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, here are all the materials I used for this setup and what it all cost. I used a Seaflow 55 series 5.5 gallon per minute 60 psi water pump that set me back $120. An exterior quick connect detachable sprayer, hose, and utility dock kit for $50. For $20, I got a 16-foot tent pole that breaks down into several smaller pieces. And on a side note, this makeshift curtain rod is a great place to hang wet clothes to dry. Okay, back to the list. $17 for 2 5-pound vinyl weight plates, the kind with a hole in the center to keep the support poles steady. That's very important. $16 for 2 standard-sized shower liners, the kind with grommets at the top. $15 for a 7-gallon water tank. $10 for some cheap spring clamps to hold the shower liners close to the support pole. And finally, I paid about $25 for size M8 stainless steel eye bolts, washers, and nylon lock nuts. I only needed 4 of each, so technically they cost less, but I had to buy the full set for each of them. All that comes to a grand total of $273. It's definitely not cheap. And you could save a lot by getting a less expensive pump. I already had mine, so I used it. The only thing I didn't buy was the support pole. I'm using an extra pole for my awning setup, but you could probably use a cheap plastic broom handle or anything similar that's about 6 feet tall. Having a shower setup can be a real luxury when you're off the beaten path. For me, it was worth the extra money. How about you? Let me know what you think in the comments. Coming up, how much it cost to build this low-profile urine diverting toilet. But first, I want to take a quick minute to tell you about a brand new free mobile app I created called Easy Watts. It helps you plan how to run all your devices without running your battery down. Here's a preview.
Whether you're camping, living the van life, or just trying to get through a power outage, Easy Watts helps you know how much portable power you need, what appliances you can use, and for how long. Here's how it works. Select a power station from popular brands like Blue Eddy, EcoFlow, Goal Zero, or Jackery. Then enter the devices and appliances you want to run. Here we're using a 12-volt fridge, a water kettle, a USB fan, an air fryer, and a microwave. And finally, set the battery percentage to match the current state of charge of the battery on your power station. Ours is set to 90%. Easy Watts shows you the runtime for your active devices. If you turn devices on and off, or change the time a device will be in use, the runtime also changes, giving you a better estimate of how long everything will last. Don't wing it. Get the mobile app that takes the guesswork out of using appliances off-grid. Easy Watts, free for iPhone and Android. To learn more, visit easywatts.net or tap the link in the description below.
Okay, now let's check out the toilet. You probably noticed these hinges here on the countertop. Well, I just take this part of the countertop, fold it back here, and it has some magnets that hold it in place, and then I lean it up, the fan pivots out of the way, and now I have access to this beautiful box, which, you guessed it, is my emergency toilet. Here I've opened it up so you can see how it's made. Down here I've got a low profile wood box with a couple of wood dividers. Up here is a custom 3D printed urine diverter that I designed to go into this very, very small water jug. That's right in there. And then instead of a 5-gallon bucket, I use a 3-gallon bucket with a flat edge, very short. It snugs in right there. And then of course I line it with a paper bag. Here's a quick look at what I use as cover material. Right beside the toilet, I keep a small black bin with cedar wood shavings. Just toss a couple scoops into the lined bucket, do your business, and cover it with a couple more scoops. And finally, in the bottom left corner, I have a small exhaust fan that I use, and here's a custom-built charcoal filter that snaps on top of it and keeps all of the smells out. Here I've got the toilet box out of the van so you can see it better, and I can show you why I made it this way. A lot of minivan builds use a 5-gallon bucket system, and that works for most people, but because I'm over 6 feet tall and because the interior height in my minivan is shorter than others like Sienna, Odyssey, and Caravan, I knew I was going to have to make my toilet really low profile. A 5-gallon bucket is about 14 inches tall. Add a wood top and a toilet seat, and it doesn't leave much headroom for a taller person to sit comfortably. So I bought a 3-gallon bucket, which is only 11 inches tall. And that's how I chose the height of the box. It needed to be just tall enough to hold the 11-inch bucket. Then I got the shortest water container I could find for the urine separation. I landed on this 1.5-gallon rectangular jug. It has a lid and a handle, so it's easy to lift out. Couple things. You'll notice I drilled a hole in the round blue cap. That's for the urine diverter to fit into. And you can see here that I cut the green plastic nozzle off the front and sealed it with a product called Water Weld. That's the dried white stuff. That took 1.5 inches off the total width, which meant I could make the base box smaller. That might not seem like a lot, but without that change, my convertible sofa would not have the clearance to open to a bed. I'll run this video in slow motion so you can see just how tight the clearance is when converting to a bed. The frame just barely clears the base of the toilet box by about 1/2 inch. I love it when a plan works out. Once I had the bucket and the water container in place, I built the base of the box to fit around those. The base measures 20.5 inches long by 14 inches wide by 11.5 inches high. Next, I added a thin piece of wood across the middle inside to hold the bucket tightly in place. I also added a black window seal material around the top edges to make it airtight. Now with the base complete, I cut a wood top about 16 inches wide and about 2 inches longer than the size of the base. I marked where the toilet seat mounting holes would go, and I traced a line along the inside edge of the seat. Then I made a cut line a couple inches wider than that. Then I cut the hole with a jigsaw. Next, I mounted the top board to the base using a 16-inch continuous hinge, also known as a piano hinge. This makes it easy to lift and hold it in place. I installed a small, super quiet 12-volt 3-speed exhaust fan. On the inside in front of the fan, I fashioned an air filter using a small strainer and cheap carbon pouch filters. It just wedges in place and covers the fan. I took it outside to test fit in the minivan. I chose the best location for it. I sat on it to test the headroom, and I tested clearances when lifting the top to make sure it opened smoothly and that it would stay open. The last thing I needed was a funnel to use as a urine diverter. I tested a bunch of funnels, and as you know, most of them are round and pretty small. I wanted a larger one, like you'd see in a commercial composting toilet, but all the larger ones were too deep for my shallow setup. Ultimately, I designed my own. I paid an artist to create a 3D file using measurements I provided, and I paid another company to print a 3D model of it. It fit great, and because it's made of ABS plastic, it should hold up to the elements. Wink, wink. That's it for the build. Now let's look at a cost breakdown for the toilet. I spent $60 on the quiet close elongated toilet seat, $50 for the printing of the urine diverter. I used a company called Craft Cloud. I paid an artist I found on Fiverr $37 to make the 3D design, $8 for foam weather strip, $7 for the water weld, $27 for the 12-volt fan, $25 for wood, $20 for a continuous hinge, $17 for a 3-gallon bucket, $8 for carbon filter pouches, $6 for a small strainer, and finally I spent a couple bucks on screws. All that comes to a grand total of $267. That is a lot of money for a toilet, and this one is great, but if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably just buy something cheaper. If you have or have seen other shower and toilet setups that you like, let us know in the comments. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.